Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Goals Do Come True with me, Doug Bennett. And today I'm joined by Jeanette Linfoot, and I need to get her bio up. It's quite exciting. I tell you what, one of the most exciting things is she runs a podcast, Brave, Bold, Brilliant is what it's called, and it's in the top 2% of all podcasts in the world, growing exponentially, and is listened to in over 74 countries. So obviously I don't need to tell her how this is all going to run because she's a veteran in that sort of thing. And I'll let her tell us what she's been up to, what her past entails, how goals fit into her life. So Jeanette, thanks for joining me this afternoon as it turns out, but we don't want to time frame anything. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you for having me on, Doug. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And yes, I truly believe goals do come true. So I'm hopefully I'll be able to share with you how that's played out in my kind of career and business life and personal life, actually. So yeah, a bit of a plotted history on me. So from a business point of view, been in business 27 years, both as a corporate CEO, running very large global travel businesses for some brands that you may have heard, TUI, Thomas Cook, First Choice, Saga. And then I jumped out of corporate life about 3 years ago to essentially become an entrepreneur with my own portfolio of businesses. So I see both sides of the coin, if you like, and what I try to do is bring together the best of big business with sort of small and medium-sized businesses. So that's the sort of the business side of things. And at the moment, I've got three businesses and the podcast as well. So I have a property investment business, which I run with my partner, Chris, and we can maybe talk about that in a bit more detail. I have an advisory business, so I do a lot of mergers and acquisitions, which is kind of an extension of my corporate life, really. So I advise businesses how to strategically grow, transform, turn around. And then I have my mentoring business. So I'm passionate about helping people really live their dreams and achieve their full potential. So mentoring, masterminding, that's one part of that. And then I have my podcast, Brave, Bold, Brilliant as well. So that's sort of the business bit of it, if you like. But you can probably tell from my dulcet tones, I'm a Mancunian, I'm a northerner. So I was brought up in Manchester, the youngest of three daughters to my parents, Doreen and Arthur. So very loving family background. You know, we didn't want for anything, but we certainly weren't well off, you know, average working class family. And I was the only one to go to university out of my family when I did an economics degree. And then I hot-footed it down to London for my first proper job as a government economist. And then I jumped into the travel industry a couple of years later, and the rest is history, as they say. So yeah, I'm very grounded, shall we say, in terms of my values and family background. But I also have been fortunate to have had a good career and a good business journey as well. So I'm very lucky.
No, top northern lass.
That's it.
Excellent. So, well, there's a lot of things that we could pick on in there. What do goals do for you? Because you said right in there, goals do come true, and I thank you for that reference. But how do you use goals to? Well, you've achieved a lot. There's a lot going on there, with the podcast and the businesses plural. So how do you make goals work for you in that respect?
Yeah, well, I believe it's a combination of having a really clear vision for your life and also where your business is or your career fits into that. Because quite frankly, if you don't know what your reason why is, then how will anyone else know? So I think for me it starts with that big picture thinking around what's important for you in your life. What are your core values? Big things like, what do you want written on your gravestone? What do you want to have stood for in this world? And I think if you can get really clear on that, then actually you can work backwards in terms of how does that break down, in relation to your business goals, your career goals, your life goals, etc. So you almost start with that, like I call it a vision cascade. Start with the big picture and then kind of break it down from there. And I'm a massive believer in what gets measured gets done. So, we talk a lot in corporate life in particular about SMART goals and SMART objectives and all of that kind of thing. But I think if you can put some numbers to what you're trying to achieve in your core areas, then you've got something to measure against, and you know what success looks like. Of course, any plan is a plan, and it will change and, you know, amend as you go. But for me, I've always been quite, I suppose, scientific about it in a way, and making sure that both in the big roles that I've done in corporate life, as well as in my own businesses, that you know your numbers, you know where you're heading, but then breaking it down into actions. Because, you know, at the end of the day, you can have a great plan, a great vision, but if you don't take the action, then stuff isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So for me, it's sort of, whether it's been in my career, knowing where I wanted to head to, ultimately becoming a CEO, or whether it's with my businesses where I say, okay, well, you know, in our property business, we're on the road to creating a property portfolio in excess of £15 million. You know, we've got a number, we know where we're heading and where we are on the journey. So yeah, it's that combination of big picture, but with the granular bottom-up approach as well, that helps you achieve what you're looking for, really.
Okay, yeah, I like that. You know, the specific numbers, and also that you were able to quote them, which means that they're a little bit more than just written down, because they're embedded into you. And I think that's an important thing. I think you mentioned the word, and you didn't use the word work, but that's it. You know, you can only achieve these goals if you take the steps, and which is involving the work. So tell us about your property portfolio, because I've been a mortgage broker for 30 years. So, and you know, I've had one or two buy-to-let properties in the past. I've never really got into it. I can see, you know, the power of leveraging, you know, mortgages to get the capital growth. But I mean, do you have a training business for that side of things? Because you mentioned all of the things that you do. So
Yeah.
do you help? Do you help people sort of create portfolios, or is that something that you're just doing for yourself?
So a bit of both is the reality. So for us, we have our own property investment business, which, as I say, I run with my partner Chris, and we have focused primarily in residential property, so buy-to-lets. Mm-hmm. We always add value, so buy, refurbish, refinance, so that you can actually leverage, you know, your cash and get passive income, essentially. So we invest in Manchester, which is where I'm from originally, but also we've got properties in London, Cambridgeshire, and we have just recently actually decided to diversify into the luxury holiday home market. So we are investing in South Wales as well. We've got a deal going through down there, which is exciting, but a very different strategy to the buy-to-let. Mm-hmm. Much more operationally involved, shall we say, but higher cash flow. So, you know, I think with anything, when you're getting into property, you need to be clear, well, as is aligned with this podcast, be clear on what it is you're trying to achieve. Is it just create a little bit of a nest egg, you know, for you to sort of draw down on when you retire? Or is it that you want, you know, passive income to replace an income from a job? You know, so being clear on how much time can you dedicate to your property business. So all of those are really important questions. So we do it for ourselves. And then with my mentoring, even though I don't specifically say that I mentor directly on property, because that is one of my businesses, quite often my mentee clients also are, you know, have a part of their portfolio that's property based, maybe adjacency to a job. So I focus on really senior executives that want to get into the boardroom, or business owners that have already got quite a good track record in business, but they want to scale up. So very often property can play part within that. So of course I'll share, you know, our hard-earned knowledge and all the mistakes that we've made, etc. But it's not overtly a property training business, if you see what I mean. It's more just from my general business experience that I can help people. So that's how it works out. But it's exciting, actually. There's a lot going on at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, well, the property market, I've been in it 30 years as such, and yeah, so it peaks and it troughs.
Indeed.
For sure. Okay, so these goals then, do you write them down, or are you a visual person? Do you use an app to keep track, or? how's it manifest itself for you?
Yeah, well, I write everything down. I'm a scribbler. So the big picture stuff, in fact, in my office here, I've got a whiteboard with our sort of, goals for the year on there at quite a macro level. But then what I then do is translate those into 12-week periods. So I don't know if anyone's listening has read the book, The 12-Week Year. It means that you focus in a 3-month period. And within that, I write down the goals specifically for the next 12 weeks, and then a specific weekly action plan that's going to get me to those numbers. And the reason why that's important, or is quite a good way to do it, is because you're focusing on a shorter period of time, you've got much more certainty about what you can achieve. You can be much more granular and targeted with, what you put on there. And you treat every week as if it's a month. So it gives you a greater sense of urgency. Where if you just set goals for the year, which is still fine to do, by the way, and I do that as well. But if you only do that, sometimes you don't have the sense of urgency, and I've seen this in corporate life where maybe you've got a sales team that has to deliver X number of sales. And, it's not until the last week of the month that they frantically get the sales in. So that whole principle, it's in the last 2 months of the year where they manage to kind of close the gap because the pressure's on and you've got a sense of urgency about it. So it's almost it's a mindset shift to say, I'm going to treat 12 weeks as a year, and every single week therefore counts. And then once you've done that, you then set the next 12 weeks. So as I say, I work on a combination of long term, where do I want to be in 5 years time, 10 years time, which is the vision piece, etc., and then working it back to the year, but then really getting granular in the next 12 weeks and measuring that ruthlessly. So and within that, having what I'd call lead and lag indicators. So a lag indicator would be that you've secured the client or you've made the sale, you've got the money in the bank. Whereas the lead indicator is, how many prospecting calls are you doing if you're in a sales role? So both are important. And the lead indicators tend to be more focused around the actions that you take that will ultimately result in the numbers, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's how I do it, which I find quite useful.
I think I like that, the accelerating the year. And I mean, I was just drifted back to my old sales days, and we had a sales manager, we have monthly figures. And it was all a case of, there were some that would hit their target and they had a few more sales, but they let them drift so that they turned up in the next month, so that they were, ahead of the game in the following month.
Yeah.
And that's the lazy way. And it's also actually not how you're going to make any money, because back to what you were saying there, it's like, well, if you put every single possible sale in this month, and next month you've got to start afresh, come the end of the year, all those little 2s and 3 sales that you've added in early will make a huge difference. But accelerating that by bringing it into, making everything that you do in a week equivalent to what you would do in a month, that doesn't leave you time to get lost in a Facebook wormhole, does it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like you do have to be incredibly disciplined with your diary, don't you? The social media is great, and you can use it for business as well as, for sort of credibility and raising your profile, etc., whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever your chosen platform is. But you can waste a lot of time as well. So I think it's about being very intentional and blocking your diary. And it's interesting because certainly when I was in corporate life, you're so much is dictated to you by the demands of the business, or, when I used to sit on the board of FTSE 100 businesses and FTSE 250 businesses. I'd be presenting to the shareholders and the city and the analysts and all that kind of stuff, as well as delivering the P&L, right? So there was so much structure around your day, if you like, and the monthly board meetings, whatever it might be. But then when you go down an entrepreneurial journey, it can be a bit of a shock, for a lot of people, so because all of a sudden, you might be craving that freedom, flexibility when you've come out of corporate life, and then all of a sudden you're there and you go, well, where do I start? This is me with my laptop and my phone. So the irony of it is that structure and discipline actually sets you free, which sounds a bit of a paradox, but I find that to be very true. So if I'm very disciplined with my diary, I block my diary, I keep strategic time for me thinking big picture, longer term stuff, as well as having very, very clear sort of operational time dedicated. And I think when you've got that discipline, then you can actually, get the freedom as well that you're looking for.
That is very, very good. And as you say, it is a paradox, because you're building structure into your life so that you can have flexibility and freedom. It really doesn't make any kind of sense whatsoever. However, it is important, the things that you want to do, because so very often, we do it in finances, so many people do. It's like, I'm going to live my life and save what's left. Okay. And instead of saving first and living off what's left, we do it, the other way around. I'm going to save, and there's never anything ever left. And that, I guess, is a bit like, I'll go to the gym when I've got a bit of time, or I go to, I'll do this when I've got some time. Yeah. And yet what you're saying is like, no, get it in there, because that structure means that you get everything done, and then you've got the free time. So I like absolutely. That. I like that.
Yeah, and I think it's important as well. I mean, there's an analogy around. I think there was the story is about a professor that's presenting to a bunch of students, and he has a jar in front of him, and he puts in all the rocks, big rocks, and you go, oh, is the jar full? Oh, yes, sir, the jar's full. Then he puts in the pebbles, and the pebbles trickle down. Oh, is the jar full now? Yes, the jar's full. Then he puts in the sand. Oh, is the jar full now? Yes, the jar's full. Then he puts in the water. Is the jar full now? Yes, the jar is absolutely full now. But the point is, the big important things in your life, the rocks, could be things like family time, holidays, date night with your partner. And if you don't put them in first, you find the jar gets filled up with all the other stuff, and then you can't get the rocks in. So it's sort of thinking about that as well. And then, sort of the pebbles will be maybe the things that you do for your business. The sand might be all like the admin type stuff. And the water is probably everyone else's agenda. Now, if you that jar full of everyone else's agenda and what their priorities are, you find you've got no room for any of your own, and before you know it, your diary's kind of lost. So it's quite useful to think of it as blocks of those important points of your life, your business, and then get rid of the admin and the other people's agenda if you can.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Just don't return their calls. If you can, of course. Okay, so I like that. I've got a slightly different version in my first book, and that is the water is a beer. And they go to the end, and he's done the pebbles, and he's done the rocks, the pebbles, and the sand, and he said, doesn't matter how busy your life is. As he pours the beer into the thing, there's always room for beer. But anyway,
I like that as well.
You can have that one. So I like to ask people about their big, hairy, audacious goals. These are like massives. So have you had any massives in the past, or have you got any that you're working on at the moment that you're happy to share with us?
Yeah. I mean, I think, if I look back at my corporate career, so when I joined the travel industry, I started out at the bottom, as a young, fresh-faced graduate and worked my way up. But back then, I always knew I wanted to be a CEO and run a big business. Now, it took me time to get there, of course, but I always knew that was where I wanted to be. So that was a pretty big, hairy, audacious when you're just starting out as a fresh-faced graduate. And I got there. I got there. So I was very proud of the career I had and the impact I made on the businesses that I ran and the teams that I created. So that was definitely one. I think really in terms of where I am now, when I came out of corporate life, I was in my mid-40s. Maybe I was having a crisis, Doug, but I certainly took some time to think about what did I want to do next, because the next natural move would have been for me to go and do another big corporate CEO role. And that's what everyone else expected me to do. But actually what I really wanted to do was create freedom, choice, flexibility, passive income, have a really nice lifestyle, but also do good in the world. So for me, my big, hairy, audacious goal is to really help as many people as possible achieve their full potential. Now, I've got a longer term vision within that as well of actually people, business owners in developing countries, in particular women, because gender, I've kind of got a natural interest in women progressing their careers as well. How cool would it be to be able to match up business leaders in the Western world with business leaders in the developing world to help them, scale and grow? So I've got this philanthropic kind of longer term goal about doing that, because I think if you can have, economic freedom, then that obviously alleviates poverty, illness, etc. in the world. So you can really make a big difference. So that's my sort of longer term thing. But in the meantime, the reason why I do my mentoring, my mastermind, my podcast, the advisory work I do to a certain degree, it's all about potential and actually stepping up and being the best version of yourself, being the best business leader, or the best mother or the best father or whatever it may be. But don't settle for mediocrity, because you only have one life, don't you? So for me, that calling, if you like, let's put it that way, is very powerful and keeps me moving forward. And then from as I say, from our property business, it's not insignificant to go from 0 to 15 million pounds in, over the course of the next sort of four years that we're looking at. So that's a pretty decent portfolio and beyond, let's see what happens after that. But yeah, I like big goals because you want stretch, don't you? Well, I do anyway.
Well, that's it. But you need to cut your teeth on this stuff,
Yeah.
if you're new to it, and get used to the idea that actually goals do come true if you've got them. And it doesn't matter how long the time frame is, but you very often find that actually if you've got a goal, it happens sooner than you anticipate or, certainly expect. And I think actually putting a 12-week year into things would accelerate it beyond belief.
Yeah.
Because, that gives you, what does that give you? No, I'm trying to work out the maths. Right, trust me, I'm a financial advisor. How many 12 weeks are there? Yeah, well, that's 4. Yeah, so that gives you 4 years production if you have some time off as well. 4 years production in a year. So if you think about how far you might have come in the last year, if you could, multiply that by 4 over the next year, but also bearing in mind the compounding effect, because everything that you've learned already, you're building upon.
Yeah.
Because you're not having to learn something that you learned last year to get the figures for last year. It's already there. So you've got the compounding effect on that. So I do, that struck me quite a bit on the 12-week year thing. I like that idea.
And also, if you break things down, actually, it seems what can seem like a big number, when you actually go, well, you know what all it is? It's 1 call a day. Or it's 5 calls a day to a potential client. Imagine how much, if you get a 20% conversion, you're getting a new client every day. Wow, what could that do to your business? Whereas actually you go, it's 5 calls a day, that's it. If you focus on the really big things that are going to, shift the dial, it's amazing, like you say, with that compound effect. What can happen. So I think generally speaking, people always overestimate what they can achieve in the short term and they underestimate what they can achieve in the long term. But if you do focus like this on those big strategic actions that you need to take, then you'll be amazed how much you can get done, because you don't waste the time.
No, that's it. Well, you're up against it all of the time, which is a good thing. But well, quite apart from anything else, if you only ever want to hit, and this is seriously almost negative, really. But if you could hit a year's worth of production in 12 weeks, you could take the rest of the year off.
Absolutely.
Which is another way. No, you know, I mean, that's obviously an extreme set of circumstances, but I'm just thinking about how this fits in with me, because next year I want to take 4 months off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want March off, I want June off, I want September off, and I want December off.
Yeah.
And I can see using this sort of strategy would accelerate, you know, the 2 months where I'm actually physically working. You just like accelerate everything that you can possibly do, so it brings a bit of urgency to that. So that I think that's a, you know, a fantastic piece of information, fantastic thing to share. Now I'm going to go, because we talked about this just before we went on, because your podcast, Brave, Bold, Brilliant, and you said it's in the top 2%, right? This is what your marketing team say. It's in the top 2%. And you told me how you can find out where your podcast is globally by using a thing called
Listen Notes.
Listen Notes.
Listen Notes. So if you go on there, just put it into Google, it'll come up, and then you just, in the search bar, you just put the name of any podcast, your own or someone else's, and then that will come up with a global ranking as a percentage. Yeah, I mean, obviously there'll be all sorts of clever stuff in the background, how they actually, you know, measure it, and downloads, frequency of episodes, all that kind of thing. But yeah, it's quite a good way to benchmark where you're sitting. And, you know, I've got 1% in my mind. I want to be in the top 1%, not 2% over the next, you know, period of time. So something to aim for, isn't it?
No, absolutely. And it's a good goal to have. So how many episodes have you done?
I'm on 132 episodes. In fact, today's episode that's out, I do 2 episodes a week, Doug. Wow. So is a solo episode on a Friday with myself, which tends to be sort of quite short and snappy. You know, it'll be some advice around how to write a business plan, or creating a growth mindset, or, you know, 10 top tips to start your property business, whatever it may be, normally along the mentoring kind of being helpful for people. And then on a Monday, it's always an interview with a really interesting, inspiring guest. So I've had global CEOs that run multi-billion pound businesses. You know, I've had Johan Lundgren, who's the group CEO of EasyJet, on there. He's an old colleague of mine, actually, so I know him very well. I've had Rory Underwood on there, who still holds the record as the highest try scorer for England's rugby. You know, I've had Leon Britton, Premiership footballer for Swansea City. You know, I've had really inspiring entrepreneurs. I've had Kev Orkian, who owns Jongleurs, the comedy club.
Yeah.
Matt Fidesz, who is Michael Jackson's former bodyguard, but the largest martial arts franchise in Europe. So a real mixture, but it's all about high performance. But today's episode, if I may, is with my lovely mum, Doreen Linfoot. And that is the most special episode to me, because my mum was talking all about how life used to be, the way we were. So it's a fascinating insight to what it was like growing up in sort of post-World War II Britain, really, right the way through to present day. So, yeah, so that's nice to be able to interview people that are special in your life as well, you know.
That's awesome.
Inspiration, yeah, so it's cool. I love it.
No, that's good. I mean, you know, obviously I get to meet people like yourself. And so, yeah, I really, really love I love doing podcasts, but I'm like almost trepidatious to ask, should we have a quick look at Listen Notes and see how Goals Do Come True features in the world?
I think we should. We should, Doug. Shall I do it live now?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it live. But if I'm in the top 50%, I'm going to be ecstatic.
Excellent. Well, I'm just getting it up here. So bear with me. Right, Goals Do Come True with the one and only Doug Bennett, which I believe is yourself. Yes, I can verify I'm with Doug Bennett. So your global ranking, Doug, is top 10%.
Whoa.
Woo!
Oh. Well, that's
cool.
all right, isn't it? That's all right. I'll take that all day long.
And your listen score is 24.
Okay. What does that mean?
There's a listen score which is out of a scale of 0 to 100, I believe. So yeah, I'm not too up on the detail about that, but you've got a listen score of 24 and you're in the top 10% globally. So that's great.
That's good. That's good.
Fantastic,
So
yeah.
okay, so I'll make my goal the top 5% to start with. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's got to be manageable, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and trackable.
Yeah,
And I'm not.
we've heard it here.
Yes, I'm not quite sure if I can manage 2 episodes a week, along with everything else. Although saying that, you know, what have you just described? Everything that you do, so anything is possible, really. I've just got to put it in the diary and decide that I've got a 12-week year, and then I'll be able to do it. Right? Okay. So, Jeanette, that's there's some really good stuff in there, but I'm going to ask you for a nugget. So this is something that people need to know.
Yeah.
If it can be goal orientated, that would be awesome. But, you know, a Jeanette nugget for my listeners. Over to you.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give you my formula for success, if that's okay.
Perfect.
So very simple. I'll say it first and I'll recap. So the formula for success is belief plus purpose plus action equals results. So belief, if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. So it all starts with the inner you, having the right mindset, being in the best shape you can be physically and mentally, genuinely believe in yourself. The purpose bit is around clarity of where you're heading, what's your reason why, and actually having, you know, the metrics behind that as well. Action is obvious, you have to take the action. You know, I do believe that if you raise your vibration, you can attract good things to you, but you do have to put the work in. And if you do all 3 of them, that's when you'll get the results. So belief plus purpose plus action equals results.
And there we have it, folks. A perfect nugget to end this week's episode. Jeanette, thank you very much. We'll make sure all of your stuff is available in the show notes, but you can just do quick, where's the best place to get hold of you? Is it your website? If so, give us that. Or you're on LinkedIn, is anything special? Where's your go-to place to find out all about you?
Well, I'm all over social media, yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Jeanette Linfoot with 2 N's and 2 T's in the name Jeanette. Obviously the podcast, Brave, Bold, Brilliant, on all the normal platforms, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it, Amazon, etc. And I've got a website, which is JeanetteLinfootAssociates.com, so you can find me there as well. So there is no hiding.
There is no hiding away from it. If you need some Jeanette in your life, that's how you find her. And I really believe you should get some.
Oh, thank you, Doug. You've been an absolute star. I've loved being on.
Thank you very much. There we go. Lovely. Super.
Oh, how was it? Was it the right sort of format?
Absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
There's some really cool stuff in there. And you know, some of it touches on some things that other people have said, and you know, some of it touches on some of the stuff that I say. So it's all good. It's like it's adding layers for people. Brilliant. I think, you know, and that's important. And also the fact is that, you know, no individual knows everything that there is to know about everything.
No, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
You know, so in that respect, it's like, right, and a slightly different take. You know, the belief, purpose and action equals results. That's like, you know, that's easy for people to, you know, sort of pick up and go with. No, that's all good. All good.
Oh, great.
You do know, I'm just reminded of Noel Coward. He just with the sentence, and it will come to you and you'll get it in a second. He sat next to this fella and he sat with him the whole evening, and the guy's going on and on and on and on and on, and Noel Coward says to him right at the end of the evening, he says, do you know what, sir? Do you know what? I think between us, we know absolutely everything in the world there is to know about everything. And the guy goes, really? You think so? He said, yes. You seem to know everything in the world there is to know about everything, except that you're boring. And I know that.
Oh, very good.
You know, but only because, you know, nobody can know everything. You know, that just sprung to me. So, and
100%.
also because we're still recording, you see, the team might pick that up and tuck it in somewhere.
Well, I think that they should.
Yeah.
They absolutely should. There's a golden nugget right there.
Absolutely. So,
Good stuff.
no, great on the, you know, the 15 million, having a target for that. That's sizable. How many properties are going to be in there? I mean, what sort of your average property size?
Well, it varies, to be fair, because obviously we've got in the portfolio, we've got a mixture of sort of, you know, 2-bed buy-to-lets, but the property we're doing down there now is like, you know, it's a $500,000 project, you know, it's going to be a really luxury 4 double-bedroom standalone property with sea views. You know, so there's a real mix. You know, if we were doing it from a serviced accommodation perspective, you probably only need 15.
Yes.
You know, but obviously we'll have a mix in the portfolio. So to be honest, it's less about the number of properties, but the gross development value, the interesting, and of course the equity and the cash flow and how we're leveraging our, you know, our capital to just keep growing. So it's quite exciting actually, and you know, and also the other thing is we're getting a lot of investors that want to invest with us, which obviously allows us to just go faster. So that's nice. So it's always a case of tell everyone what you do, right? Because you never know who might be interested in buddying up with you. You know, I think that's a rule in business, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, and you know, there are so many people out there that are in a position to help, and they, you know, they don't actually know that you need the help.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and if you've got money sitting in the bank, as you well know, it's a problem. It's value. So, you know, invest with us. I'll give you a
Excellent. Excellent.
It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, well, thank you so much, Doug. I really enjoyed our chat.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Jeanette, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. How many episodes are you into now, Doug, with yours?
I think we've just gone past the year, so it's about 53. I think I'm recorded up to about now the middle of November. So,
yeah,
you know, I'm a bit ahead of the game in that respect. But what we'll do is we'll let you know when it's, you know, when it's out, and the day after it goes out, because mine go out on Wednesdays, the day after it goes out, we'll send you a little note and say, right, here's the link to Spotify and all the other bits.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'll get it shared on all my social media. And then what I will do, Doug, if you give me the me the audio track, I can also put it out on Brave Bold Brilliant as one of my solo episodes as well. And then you get the promo and, you know, all your contacts as well. So that can work quite nicely.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get the audio over to you. No problem at all.
Good
Jeanette,
stuff.
thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Nice to chat with you, and you take care.
And you, mate. Cheers.
Okay. Bye.